Imagine spending over 4 decades inside emergency rooms, watching hundreds of patients walk through those doors with the same complaints: heavy legs, sluggish circulation, a body that simply stopped responding the way it once did. Now imagine waking up one morning and recognizing those exact same symptoms in yourself. That is precisely what happened to me after 42 years as an ER surgeon. The irony was almost unbearable. I had spent my entire career treating these conditions in other people, prescribing solutions, sending patients home with advice, and yet here I was, experiencing the very same decline I thought I understood so well. That moment changed everything for me, because I stopped thinking like a doctor treating a patient and started thinking like a scientist with a problem to solve. I turned my attention to the simplest daily habit imaginable, something every single person on Earth does without thinking: drinking water. And I decided to find out whether this ordinary act could be transformed into something genuinely powerful. Over the following months, I tested more than 60 different powders, compounds, natural extracts, and combinations. Some produced absolutely nothing. Some actually made things worse. The vast majority were a complete waste of time and money. But a small handful, only 5 specific additions, changed something real and noticeable, not gradually over many months, but in a way that could be felt within days. Better circulation, lighter legs, a body that finally started responding again. And the most shocking realization of all was this: it was never about drinking more water. It was always about how your body reacts to water, and after the age of 60, that reaction becomes significantly weaker unless you know exactly how to trigger it the right way. Before revealing all 5 of these additions, ranked from least powerful to most powerful, it is worth understanding why plain water simply stops being enough as you get older. When you are young, your blood vessels are elastic, flexible, and highly responsive. Your body produces adequate amounts of key molecules like nitric oxide that keep those vessels relaxed and open. Your red blood cells move freely, your microcirculation is efficient, and water absorbed into your system gets transported to where it needs to go with very little effort. But past the age of 60, multiple systems begin to decline simultaneously. Your vessel walls thin out and lose their elasticity. Nitric oxide production drops significantly. Blood can become stickier and more prone to sluggish flow. Microcirculation, which is the movement of blood through your tiniest capillaries, deteriorates in ways that affect every single tissue in your body. The result is that even when you are doing everything right, drinking plenty of water, staying reasonably active, eating sensibly, your body is working with a fundamentally compromised delivery system. The water goes in, but the machinery that distributes it throughout your body has rusted in ways that plain water alone cannot fix. What you need are specific compounds that target those exact failure points. And that is precisely what these 5 additions do, each one attacking the problem from a different angle. The 5th addition on this list is one of the most overlooked and yet one of the most elegant solutions available, and it requires nothing more than fresh cucumber slices and a small handful of mint leaves steeped in filtered water for at least 30 minutes before drinking. This might sound like something served at a luxury spa, but the biochemistry behind it is genuinely serious science. Cucumbers contain a compound called silica, which plays a direct structural role in maintaining the integrity of your blood vessel walls. As those walls thin with age, silica helps reinforce the connective tissue holding them together. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition, Health, and Aging found that participants who increased their dietary silica intake showed a 12% improvement in arterial flexibility over a 12-week period. Even a modest gain in arterial flexibility translates directly into better blood pressure regulation and more efficient oxygen delivery throughout the entire body. The mint leaves in this combination are doing far more than adding a pleasant flavor. Mint contains rosmarinic acid, a natural compound that acts as a vasodilator, meaning it encourages your blood vessels to relax and widen so that blood can pass through with less resistance and less strain on your heart. Research published in the journal Phytomedicine demonstrated that rosmarinic acid reduced vascular resistance by approximately 15% in older adults within just 2 weeks of consistent use. To prepare this properly, slice half a medium cucumber thinly, gently crush 10 to 12 fresh mint leaves between your fingers to release their oils, and drop everything into a pitcher of filtered water. Let it sit in the refrigerator overnight for the strongest concentration, and drink at least 3 full glasses throughout the day. Use organic cucumbers whenever possible because the skin holds most of the silica, and you want to avoid any pesticide residue entering your infusion. This simple two-ingredient combination works simultaneously on two fronts, strengthening vessel walls while relaxing them for easier blood flow, something plain water is completely incapable of achieving on its own. The fourth addition brings together two ingredients that traditional medicine has relied upon for centuries, and which modern clinical research has now thoroughly validated: fresh lemon juice and raw ginger root stirred directly into your water. Lemon is among the richest natural sources of vitamin C available, and this vitamin is absolutely essential to the production of nitric oxide, the master signaling molecule that tells your blood vessels when to relax and open wide. The challenge is that after 60, your body produces far less nitric oxide independently, and that decline has real consequences for circulation throughout your extremities, your brain, and your heart. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults who consumed higher levels of vitamin C had 23% greater nitric oxide availability compared to those with low intake. That single difference can represent the gap between healthy, responsive circulation and the kind of sluggish blood flow that produces cold hands, persistent fatigue, and the early stages of cognitive decline. The raw ginger in this combination targets a completely separate but equally important problem. Ginger contains active compounds called gingerols and shogals that have been scientifically demonstrated to inhibit platelet aggregation, which is the tendency of blood platelets to clump together and slow circulation. When platelets cluster, flow slows and the risk of dangerous blockages increases. A clinical trial published in the journal Thrombosis Research showed that participants consuming the equivalent of 2 grams of raw ginger daily experienced a 19% reduction in platelet aggregation after just 8 weeks, meaning their blood moved more freely and with less cardiovascular risk throughout the entire system. To prepare this, squeeze 1 full fresh lemon into a large glass of water and drop in thin slices of a 1-inch piece of peeled raw ginger. Let the ginger sit for at least 15 minutes so its active compounds can fully leach into the liquid. Drink this first thing in the morning on an empty stomach when absorption rates are at their highest, and aim for a second serving in the afternoon. The lemon and ginger operate in perfect synergy here, one boosting nitric oxide production while the other keeps the blood itself in an optimal flowing state. The third addition on this list is the one that nearly did not make it, the one that was almost set aside and forgotten, and yet it turned out to produce the most immediately noticeable difference of anything tested during those months of experimentation. That ingredient is beetroot juice, diluted in water and consumed daily as part of a morning routine. If there is a single natural ingredient that has genuinely stunned cardiovascular researchers over the past decade, beetroot is it. And the reason comes down to an extraordinarily high concentration of dietary nitrates that the body converts directly into nitric oxide through a conversion process that begins in the mouth and continues in the stomach. This pathway is distinct and more efficient than other nitric oxide boosting approaches, and the concentration of nitrates in beets is high enough to produce measurable effects within just a few hours. A landmark study published in the journal Hypertension found that participants who drank approximately 250 milliliters of beetroot juice experienced a significant reduction in blood pressure and a 20% increase in blood flow to their muscles within just 3 hours of consumption. That is not a gradual improvement building over weeks. That is the body responding almost immediately to a concentrated delivery of usable nitrates. A separate study from the University of Exeter, published in the Journal of Applied Physiology, found that older adults who consumed beetroot juice daily for 2 weeks demonstrated a 16% improvement in exercise endurance, directly linked to enhanced oxygen delivery through improved circulation. The reason for diluting it rather than drinking it straight is twofold. Concentrated beetroot juice can be hard on the stomach for older adults, and spreading it in water creates a more sustained release of nitrates over time rather than one overwhelming spike. Mix approximately 100 milliliters of pure beetroot juice with no added sugars into a large 300 milliliter glass of water, stir well, and drink it in the morning about 2 hours before any physical activity. Be aware that beetroot juice may temporarily turn urine or stool a reddish color due to a harmless natural pigment called betanin. This is completely normal and is actually confirmation that the active compounds are being processed correctly by your body. The second addition on this list targets a problem that most people over 60 have never even been told about: the progressive deterioration of microcirculation in the extremities, the slow withdrawal of blood flow from the hands, feet, and toes that produces numbness, slow wound healing, easy bruising, and that persistent cold feeling in the limbs that no amount of extra clothing seems to fix. The solution is cayenne pepper dissolved in warm water and consumed as a daily morning tonic. Cayenne pepper contains a compound called capsaicin, which is responsible for the heat sensation associated with spicy food, but which also happens to be one of the most potent natural vasodilators ever studied in a clinical setting. When capsaicin enters the bloodstream, it triggers the release of two specific neuropeptides, substance P and calcitonin gene-related peptide, both of which cause blood vessels to rapidly expand and allow significantly greater flow. A clinical study published in the journal Clinical Nutrition found that participants who consumed capsaicin daily for 4 weeks experienced a 26% improvement in peripheral blood flow, meaning blood was reaching their extremities dramatically more effectively than before. A separate study published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology found that capsaicin consumption increased microcirculation, the movement of blood through the tiniest capillaries, by up to 31% in older adults. When microcirculation improves at that level, the effects are felt throughout the body at the cellular level, because it is microcirculation that delivers oxygen and nutrients directly to tissues and removes waste products efficiently. To prepare this tonic, fill a large mug with warm but not boiling water, add just 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper powder, and stir until fully dissolved. This starting dose produces only a gentle warmth and is well tolerated by most people. Over the course of 2 weeks, gradually increase to 1/4 teaspoon as your tolerance develops. Drink this once daily, approximately 30 minutes before breakfast, because the warm water significantly accelerates capsaicin absorption through the stomach lining. A small squeeze of lemon can soften the sharpness without reducing any of the effectiveness. Those taking blood-thinning medications should consult their physician before beginning this practice, since capsaicin can enhance the effects of such drugs. The first addition on this list, the one that earned the top position after everything else was tested and compared, is one that most people have never considered putting in their water, and the research behind it is so remarkable that even the scientists conducting the studies expressed genuine surprise at the results. Dried hibiscus flower petals, cold brewed overnight in filtered water and consumed throughout the following day, represent perhaps the single most powerful natural intervention available for vascular health in older adults. Hibiscus flowers, specifically the dried petals of the Hibiscus sabdorifa plant, contain an extraordinarily dense concentration of anthocyanins and polyphenols that act directly on the endothelial cells lining your arteries in ways that no other natural ingredient has been shown to replicate. Cold brewing is essential to this process because water temperatures above 70 degrees Celsius destroy a significant portion of these delicate anthocyanins, eliminating much of the benefit. Steeping in cold water for a minimum of 8 hours, and ideally 12, extracts the maximum concentration of these protective compounds without damaging them. A landmark clinical trial published in the Journal of Human Hypertension studied adults with an average age of 65 and found that those who consumed hibiscus water daily for 6 weeks experienced a 44% improvement in flow-mediated dilation, which is the gold standard scientific measurement for how effectively blood vessels expand and contract in response to blood flow. That 44% figure was described as stunning by the researchers themselves because it approaches the effectiveness of certain prescription medications designed specifically for vascular health. A second major study found that hibiscus extract reduced arterial stiffness by 17% in older adults over just 4 weeks. Arterial stiffness is one of the primary mechanical drivers of poor circulation after 60, because stiff arteries cannot flex and propel blood forward the way healthy elastic vessels do. The anthocyanins in hibiscus work through 2 simultaneous mechanisms, boosting the bioavailability of nitric oxide while also reducing oxidative stress in the very endothelial cells responsible for vascular responsiveness. To prepare this correctly, place 2 tablespoons of dried hibiscus petals in a large glass jar with 1 liter of cold filtered water. Seal it and refrigerate for 8 to 12 hours. Strain the petals in the morning and drink the deep red liquid across 3 to 4 glasses spread throughout the day. The flavor is naturally tart, similar to cranberry, and a small amount of raw honey can be added without diminishing the therapeutic effect. Dried hibiscus petals are widely available at health food stores, international grocery shops, and online retailers at very affordable prices, and a single bag will last for weeks of daily use. What makes these 5 additions genuinely meaningful, rather than simply interesting, is the fact that they do not compete with one another. Each one targets a different mechanism of circulatory decline: silica and rosmarinic acid reinforcing and relaxing vessel walls, vitamin C and gingerols boosting nitric oxide and reducing platelet clumping, dietary nitrates from beetroot flooding the system with direct vasodilatory signals, capsaicin driving blood into the microcirculatory network of the extremities, and anthocyanins from hibiscus restoring elasticity and reducing oxidative damage to the arterial lining. Used individually, each one produces measurable results. Used in combination as part of a consistent daily routine, the compounding effect on circulatory function can be dramatic. The key word in that sentence is consistent, because every single study showing the most significant results was built around regular, uninterrupted daily consumption over multiple weeks. These are not one-time fixes or emergency interventions. They are daily habits that progressively restore vascular function that may have been quietly declining for years or even decades without producing obvious symptoms until the damage had already accumulated significantly. The most important thing to understand about everything covered here is that the body retains a remarkable capacity for recovery and improvement regardless of age. Blood vessels that have stiffened and narrowed over years of inadequate support do not become permanently fixed in that state. Given the right molecular signals, the right nutritional inputs, and the right daily habits, those vessels can regain meaningful degrees of elasticity and responsiveness. The endothelial cells lining your arteries are living tissue that responds to what you expose it to every single day. When you consistently deliver the compounds found in hibiscus, beetroot, lemon, ginger, cayenne, cucumber, and mint, you are giving those cells the specific tools they need to repair, regenerate, and perform more effectively. This is not about extraordinary effort or expensive interventions. None of these 5 additions require a prescription. None of them require specialist equipment. All of them are grounded in published clinical research from peer-reviewed journals, and all of them begin with the simplest object already sitting in your kitchen: a glass of water. You do not need to begin with all 5 additions simultaneously. Starting with just one, whichever feels most accessible or most relevant to your particular situation, is a completely valid approach. Many people find it useful to introduce a new addition every week or two, allowing the body to adjust and making it easier to identify which specific changes are producing which specific results. What matters most is beginning, because the vascular decline associated with aging does not pause while you deliberate. Every day of consistent practice is a day of accumulated benefit, and every glass of properly enhanced water is a small but meaningful act of support for a cardiovascular system that does an extraordinary amount of work to keep you alive and functioning. Your blood vessels have supported you through every decade of your life. With the right daily habit dissolved in something as simple and available as water, you can begin returning the favor starting today.